Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew, and today I'm really excited for this conversation for a couple of reasons. One, I'm speaking with a good friend who I haven't chatted with a long time, so it's a pleasure to have him on the podcast. Also going to be talking about the importance of this game that we all love, football, especially as it relates to community and regional and cultural pride and identity as well. So we're going to welcome Jason Heaton. Jason is the president, co-founder of Kernow FA, as well as a global ambassador for CONIFA. Jason, my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Good to see you again, Andrew. Thanks for the invite.
Pleasure to have you. And I'm really excited for this. We're going to go a lot of different ways, but the way we want to introduce you, like we do with all our guests here, is hit us with your first ever football memory.
It's a beauty. I'll go with rather than the first pair of boots playing in the street scenario. I'll go with my first ever professional game.
Okay.
I was playing for a local outfit, and they did a bus trip. At the time, I was in just living near Leeds, so like Leeds United area in Yorkshire. And they did a trip to watch a Manchester United v Manchester City game. So this was in 1991, and we were charged £3.50 for the privilege. So that included the bus trip and a sandwich. So, and it was like crossing over to the other side. So we went to this game, and big derby at Old Trafford, which is something anyway. And when we get there, there's all this chatter. You can hear people talking about this new player, this wonder kid they've all been waiting to see. And the player in question is Ryan Giggs. He's 16 years old. He makes his... Now, some stato is going to correct me on this, but I'm sure it was his full debut. It might not have been, but it was his first goal for Manchester United as a professional player. Scoreline 1-1, but to think you were at and saw that player, Ryan's first ever goal, and considering what he went on to do. And I followed him then all my life, actually. Do you know, right up until, he finished playing at 41 or whatever ridiculous it was. And that is my first memory of a professional game. Yeah.
And really lined up for you, the football gods.
I did actually follow Ryan quite a bit, but there was something, like the playing was one thing, but he went through a spell when he was about 31, 32, where he was racked with injury. He actually had a bit of an epiphany, and in his own words, he's come to realise that he didn't even know who he was anymore. He says, I'd listened to so many people for so long, I'd lost touch with actually who I was. So in the time during during this spell where he was getting injured all the time, he took up yoga, attributes yoga for giving him the longevity and getting him out of that injury spell. Really just needed to reconnect. And he reconnected through yoga and got another 8 years of top level playing football out of himself, and really enjoyed it. And it was at that point, it really made me think about yoga. I actually thought we should all be doing yoga. I was doing a lot of coaching at the time, and I actually embraced it. And yoga's a big part of my life now because of it. So
beautiful. Yeah. All right, Giggsy, that's part of that. Because football, exactly. You saw the benefits of yoga.
Yeah, you've got to look after yourself for sure.
And absolutely. So let's make a little PSA to everybody. If you're feeling a little off, take some time, reconnect, whether that's physical practice, spiritual, meditative, whatever that might be. Take a moment, pause this episode.
There's a little ancient Chinese proverb that I sometimes run by, and it's quite simple. If you can't find 20 minutes for yourself, you must take 1 hour.
I feel like I know a fair bit about the world of football and the world in general, just, basic useless fact type of stuff. And when I met you a few months ago and you said, I had known of CONIFA. So again, CONIFA, I'll let you do like a better full definition, but essentially for people listening, it's kind of like the FIFA, the international footballing organization for countries, territories, states that aren't necessarily recognized by other international governing bodies, whether they be political, whether they be sporting.
Yeah.
But with that context, right, with Kernow, when I met you, I was like, well, what's Kernow? So tell us where is Kernow, who you all are, and then a little bit about the FA and how that fits in with CONIFA and this game of football.
Okay, well, Kernow FA. Kernow is Cornish for Cornwall. Cornwall is actually just it's an English interpretation as a word, really. So Cornwall is an ancient Celtic nation on the southwest of England. It was once a good power base and probably a little bit bigger than what it is today. It has Celtic nation status, but it doesn't have its own assembly like Wales, Northern Ireland, Ireland, or Scotland, or Isle of Man, Jersey. So it doesn't have like an international football team through the traditional channels, through the FAs, through England FA and such like. But because of CONIFA, the Confederation of Independent Football Associations, and the fact that Cornwall is recognised by the United Nations as its own race, it's got its own cultural heritage, it's got its own language, then through CONIFA, it's the perfect. CONIFA is the platform by which then Cornwall or Kernow can represent itself internationally. Actually, a lifelong journey brought me to a point where that was enabled and was allowed to come to fruition. I don't really believe we make any decisions anymore. I think a lot of things are written. We can choose certain matters, but I think there's a little bit of a coming round which we'll touch on.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think we talk a lot on this podcast. I explore a lot through like the different stories we do on video on our various channels like YouTube and Instagram and things, is like kind of how football is such a powerful means of bringing people together, whether they share nothing in common, like you just mentioned, in terms of language, maybe a culture, heritage, a race, and ethnicity, all those things. With growing up in Cornwall, there wasn't this FA, there wasn't this footballing identity, right?
No.
So then you kind of felt led, you and I imagine some people you're connected with, like, hey, we need to, hey, CONIFA is, I guess you had seen that example of CONIFA and some of these other
actually,
states, right? Other organizations.
Yeah, well, it was a bit funny coming around. There's a guy, so I co-founded it. I wasn't the just like one kind of founder. Even if I look at that now, it's like you play your role, but everyone who's involved is a founder essentially. Yeah, it just is, because everyone's putting in the energy. You've all just got your separate roles. But there was a guy called Andrew Bragg, and Andrew is deeply Cornish, and he was a little bit like not a godfather, but like a granddad of Cornish football. He's really well respected. The players that were in his youth teams and are now either the best players in Cornwall or were the best players in Cornwall as seniors, and they've all gone on to management, beautiful people of the community. So what happened is Andrew actually came to me in February 2017, having spoken to one of the founders of CONIFA, Malcolm Blackburn, and actually just rung me up out of the blue. I'd never heard of it at that point. I didn't know. So I started following it. And I followed it through the European Championships, which was in North Cyprus at the time in 2017. And I was following it on Twitter and X, sort of the millennials. And
Gen Zers.
Yeah, that's the one. And I was following it on Twitter, and like all these teams are playing. It's a full international tournament, and I was like the only person following it. I was like, how can this be? How is this working out? Anyway, long story short, I got in touch with them about the freestyle football, maybe seeing if I could get a bit of an international platform, because we've done the British Championships and all this. And then they announced we were going to do a World Cup in London. Literally, that's September that year. And I thought, and I just reached out to Per Anders Blind, the president. Anyway, we had a chat, and we were chatting for about 3 or 4 weeks. And they literally just asked me out the blue if I would join them and help them put a World Cup on in London. And I thought, yes, I will. Yes, I will definitely help you put a World Cup on in London. This is unreal. And I remember just, I put the phone down and I was literally bouncing around the house. But what I thought at that point is that if I get involved, then I can get involved, check the ground out. If it all works out, I've done the due diligence on putting a team together for Cornwall. And I actually, when I started getting into it, I didn't think I'd be the person to make the team. Actually, to get that right, to put that World Cup on, those 5 of us organised that World Cup in London pretty much on our own, with a budget from Paddy Power of about 110,000, 16 teams from all over the world. It's insane, and we put it right before the World Cup in Russia. There was a football vacuum. End of the season, everyone waiting for the Russia World Cup. And we just put this World Cup on, and the media, it was just crazy. It was amazing. Like we had coming from as far away as Tuvalu.
Yeah, tell us some of these countries and teams, because again, most of these people are not even going to recognize, because again, to try to explain to everyone, like, you have some places that may be, they are a specific geographic region, but sometimes it's along ethnic lines. And particularly what stood out to me is with a lot of these CONIFA nations is many of them have some sort of conflict, collective challenge, trauma in their recent histories and ancient histories. And football again becomes like this very rare thing that everybody can rally around. And so being able to put on a World Cup of that magnitude, just tell us some of these places like that context. I think it's important because many of us don't come from those places and can't necessarily understand why it means so much. Like, hey, Cornwall, fine, you want to get together, cool, but like, you guys can support England at the World Cup. Like, what's the big deal, right? But obviously, there's distinctions to this.
Yeah, Cornwall might sound fluffy. Just before I'll take it a little step on, but Cornwall's been getting ostracised and pillaged for like 400 years. Cornish people are now in a minority in their own land. It's been getting cleared for a long time, so there's definitely a stance there, But a couple of the teams are like Tuvalu, so Tuvalu are in. The other side of Australia. Just Google that for us. So then we have Tibet. So Tibet came in. Believe me, as soon as you start dealing with Tibet, you start dealing with China. And China don't, and I don't mind saying it, I've said it many times, China don't come in the front door. Do you know what I mean? They had weight everywhere. It was well covered at the time, but there was points in the 2018 World Cup where you're about to put ink on paper for contractual agreements where you need some cash. And it's like, right, yeah, we love what you're about. We're happy to give you some money. This is great. Just one slight problem. Oh, yeah. Tibet. And it's just like this. I'm laughing. It's really not funny, but it's like, if you could just remove Tibet, we're all good. We've got Chinese, we get a lot of stuff produced in China.
Business relationships, markets.
They've just said to us, if you touch this World Cup, how they know these things, who knows? And Tibet are involved, we'll just stop sending you stuff. It's like, oh. And so they're like, if you could just take Tibet out. And we're like, well, you're completely missing the point then, aren't you? So, you just like slide in a bit of paper back across the table, like, catch you later. But, Tibet were amazing. Their support was amazing. Northern Cyprus, we had a lot to do with the Northern Cypriot community, Turkish community in London, which the Turkish leagues, there's 5 Turkish leagues in London. Wow. Just their own Turkish leagues. Football. It's huge. And they were the most supportive, family-orientated back people to be involved, you could imagine. They were amazing. And they got to the final. So Carpetalia, who won it, came in as a late addition, and they ended up winning it.
I've been experiencing this a lot as I've traveled around the U.S., United States being an extremely diverse country. We have everybody from pretty much everywhere. We have some pocket in some place. And most of those communities have some kind of love for football. And it just kind of like reinforces that the game becomes such a way of just like a lens on the world and a way of learning about people's challenges, struggles. I can't imagine the interactions, the conversations that happened at the CONIFA World Cup, between people of different areas, or maybe they live in a similar neighborhood in London, but they have such different backgrounds, and what other reason would they have to come together but for the game, right?
The football putting a light on things is one thing, but you are just allowed to play football and enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. A good friend of mine, Francesco Zima, who I worked with in CONIFA, we were on the Global Executive Committee together. He wrote the first white paper on international pan disabilities, actually. He'd studied all of the international setups for disability football, and then created the first sort of global white paper on how countries could come together to play through disabilities football. And it was actually because of that white paper when I was General Secretary of CONIFA for a short spell as well. If you can put people in a situation where they can just speak, from the heart about their heart's work, soul work, what they're committed to, then I'm all for it. But Francesco, actually, some of Francesco's stories, he travelled around the world himself, went all the way through China, South America. He was working with street kids in Bolivia, notorious drink and drugs problems down on the streets, and will not speak to adults or strangers. You can't go up and engage with these children. He says so. He used to just sit on the street for a couple of hours, and he says, I could feel them all watching me from the buildings in the side of the streets. He says, and then I'd just go and put a ball down in the middle of the street. He says, and before you know it, they'd all be out. They'd all be out. And he says, we'd just have a massive street game. And I'm like, yeah. See, that's what it's all about.
And you're speaking there of like the joy that the game brings too.
Yeah.
But as we're talking, I want to get back to Kernow, right? To talk a little bit about what you guys are doing, have come in. But I think before we get to some of the things you have planned, events, you guys have a new kit release that we're definitely going to pull up and show everybody. But there's a lot of Cornish people that were integral in spreading the game of football. If we go back 100+ years, right? So give us a little bit of that connection, obviously through the lens of football, but a little bit of, hey, why are these people traveling all over the world and what they're bringing with them, and then how that kind of creates these modern present day connections.
Well, one game in particular that we are working on is a game with Pachuca in Mexico, the oldest football club in Mexico, which was started by Cornish men and women who have been sent out there or gone out there, as an opportunity for mining purposes from around 1700 to 1750. Something like that. I think around that time, if you look at the history within the United Kingdom, there was a lot of clearing, Highlands, Cornwall, sent out, New World, this kind of stuff. But they, when they went and they took football, they go to Mexico and they started football. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that just looking at the simplicity of that historical significance to say that, football is very much a Cornish sport.
Yeah, experienced miners from Cornwall originally came in the 1800s and brought football, some form of it, with them.
Yeah.
And then Pachuca, being one of the older clubs in Mexico, I was just doing a bit of research and learning as I was in Mexico a few weeks ago, and kind of the connection between how the game got there and how some of those clubs started.
Yeah, well, it's the bicentennial celebration next year of this 200 years mark, people going and such like. So we're trying to get the game nailed down. Pachuca want the game. The British Consulate want the game. I'm trying to leverage it in 3 weeks before the Mexico City kickoff. I want to be involved in that carnival. The other tie in there that we might be able to land on is that the British Consulate are hosting Street Child United's World Cup from May the 15th to around the 27th, something like that. That again would be very close to my heart, and any participation across this board in relation to things like this would be astonishing. So yeah, but so we're trying to get that on. But it was also I'll chuck in there. It was a Cornishman called Adam, I think Adam Clayton, from a small Cornish town called St. Blaise that started the Mexican national football team in 1898, and he managed it himself until 1919. I think, and the thing is with this, no one knows back in Cornwall. You'll find a handful of people that are aware of this, and but no one knows. That consciousness has been removed. But yet you go to Cornwall, or you go to Little Cornwall in Pachuca, there's still Cornish speakers. So I would love to have this game on and arranged. I would like a little nod from FIFA, as to the historical significance of those undertaking this part in their World Cup can go back to Cornish men and women.
You talked about doing the CONIFA World Cup. You're talking now about this, this game in Pachuca to celebrate kind of the Cornish Mexico connection. But what does it take for people who look around and says, hey, we might have a similar story, we might want to do something similar and use the game to create an event to remember some kind of identity, relationship, connection, an event? Like, what kind of stakeholders, people does it take, and kind of movement does it require to actually make something like this happen? What would your advice, what would your framework or guidance be?
I think first and foremost, you've got to genuinely love some aspect of what it is you're prepared to undertake. For me, football it's actually just something in me. Sometimes it breaks me. It's broke me many times, but it's also saved me many times. You know what I mean? It's brought me back to life. I don't know. I feel like I'm just born to do what I do. There's a sole purpose with me in this, that if I don't do it, I actually get ill. If I don't do what I'm doing, but you can't do it on your own. We're all team made. So I think if it is something that you are looking to do and you feel is a good idea, then great. Great, you've got the idea. Run with it. Actually run with it. See it through. Have a dig. Try it. Get people involved. Have a chat with someone else. Open a door. CONIFA's door's always open. Always open. You can contact a president on any continent, and he'll either point you in the right direction or just have a chat. So that's no issue. Speak to people that are already heavily involved and have a go. Actually, just have a go. Get started.
On this podcast, we often talk about what makes this game so great, how it hooks us and makes us feel. And we can't forget that a piece of that is how the game looks. That's why we're proud to announce that this episode of the Because Football podcast is sponsored by Static Age Studio, a print shop and design studio that serves some of the biggest names out there. Think the Philadelphia Eagles, Nike, Puma, Stussy. Whether it's jerseys, training kits, fan tees, any merch you might need, Static Age Studio can help you with their high-quality screen printing, graphic design, embroidery, and DTG printing services all across the U.S. and internationally. Check them out on Instagram at Static Age Studio or head to www.staticagestudio.com to get started. And if you mention the Because Football podcast, you'll get 15% off your first order. Don't wait. Get in touch with Dylan and the team now to continue loving the beautiful game in style. Now, let's get back to the episode. And now I want to pivot here. We're talking about kind of the past, what it took to build. But you guys, obviously you're trying to plan this amazing event in Pachuca. If anybody wants to be a part of that, make sure to reach out to Jason. We're going to put all his contact information in the show notes and description so you guys can get in touch. But you guys got a new kit release, which I am going to show on the screen here in a moment. So everybody loves a kit release. Everybody loves some new threads to represent what we're doing. So we've got that release. We're going to pull it up. But tell us a little bit how this came to be.
The stories in this story run deep, man. We're going to have to extend this. We're going to have to do a part 2, I think, just to tell this bit. It's nuts,
anytime.
Right?
I love your energy and the stories, mate. So anytime. But yeah, hit us with this.
I've only just
Kernow FA kit.
It's so fresh and just arrived, courtesy of Meyba. It's not. I had to go to the printers and grab it because I wanted to have it up. Look, the tags are still on the coat. I literally took it out of a wrapper.
I was wondering what that was. I couldn't tell if that was like a name tag. I was like, man,
man.
You know, we got your name on the screen. We don't need to wear a name tag.
But how did we meet Meyba? Right. So we were both in Ajax, right?
Yeah.
There it is. We were both in Ajax at the Soccer X Europe this year. And this guy walks across me, African guy, big. And he just turns around to me and goes, Jason Heaton. I mean, he was like, he's big as Kente. Big character. And he's like, Jason Heaton, as I live and breathe. I'm like, oh my God, who's this guy, right? And all the time I'm looking at him thinking, I hope we haven't met before. So I do pride myself in remembering names and bits, you know, and I'm looking at him thinking, I don't know this guy, but he definitely knows me. I said, right, have we met? Have we met before? He went, no, sir, we have not met. Well, he says, but everything you do has enabled everything that I have done. I was like, what? So UCFB is the University of Football Business, started off at Wembley, it's now at Manchester City. And we'd had good connections with them already. And we've been working with some of the students. I really like the UCFB. But on that day, on that game, they had about 6 or 7 students there. They were doing their own bits of filming, recording, and playing their part. And Kente was a part of that. And we didn't meet. But from that point, Kente started following Kernow FA, thinking, right, well, who are they? You know what? So he finished his degree with UCFB, still following me and Kernow FA and bits and bats. These are in his own words, by the way. And he says, it's because of you I started New City Gold, in Guyana. Now in their 3rd season, right? He's telling me all this on the balcony. And I know we get talking about kit and he went, I says, I'm actually new kit, thinking about new kit for a team and stuff. He went, come with me. So he literally marched me down with his entourage. He had this like entourage with him. He marches me down and sits me down in the Meyba stand that you knew. You know, so Liam Baker's there. He just literally walked in. He went, tells Liam Baker, who I've been dealing with now, he tells him, Liam, all about me. And just literally looks at him and says, give him anything he wants because this guy is my, I'm like, and at the time, I've never heard of Meyba. But I'm looking at pictures. I'm looking at a Maradona shirt. The colours, the 80s one, yellow stripe. And I'm like, no way, is that Maradona shirt? We get to chatting. I went, is that Maradona shirt? He went, yeah. I went, no. I'm a Maradona fan, right? And so he's like, no way. So gets chatting. And since then, they want to get involved in grassroots startups, relaunch the company. And he just loves everything about Kernow FA, what we're all about, and I like what they're about. You know, pure football. The sort of footballing philosophy that we've integrated into Kernow FA is that it's La Masia, it's total football, it's Johan Cruyff, it's Ajax, it's Jimmy Hogan. Have you ever heard of Jimmy Hogan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Scottish coach back in the day.
That's the guy. That's the guy. Yeah, kicked out of the UK. Your football's too good. We don't want that football here. Off he goes to Hungary. Comes back to Hungary. Come back to Wembley. Smashes England. Do you know what I mean? So all that, right? So I'm looking at Meyba. I'm like, no way. So we'll get this kit deal laid down. It's a partnership. You know, we can use all their imagery. We're going to work together. We're going to build everything. I'm going to really embrace what they're about and help set a tone now for what we're all about and really put everything together. Catalonian kit making company as well as Meyba. So again, it comes back into the right circle. And but last week I found out that, and I didn't know this, that Johan Cruyff and his business partner bought Meyba for it to come back and for us to be able to play in it, and and now all that history can now be brought in and put in and around Kernow FA players. So I can now use Maradona's image.
Cool. Pretty awesome. Yeah.
It really is an alignment,
All the little stories, the connection to the personal, but then the footballing as well. And this is Cornish here. This is written Cornish that we've got at the top. Yep.
That's our team for players with unique abilities. Quite possibly got a world record. They're 129-0.
I guess in the next thing here, speaking of that 129-0, let's dig in here. I'm really excited for this, and you're allowed to have some stories. Of course, you're encouraged to have some stories around each of these choices, but our all-time five-a-side segment. I think we got to get into it. So again, a refresh for yourself, for everybody listening. It is five-a-side. However, Jason has to be in this team. He must pick himself. So really, you just get four, and for good behavior, I might give you a substitute if you need to pick a fifth. But it's really just yourself and four players, any time period, any level. Could be an all-time great. Could be somebody from Kernow team that maybe hasn't quite hit the mainstream yet. Schoolboy teammate, whatever it is. So
has anyone ever asked you if you could do like a locals and a dream team?
Yeah, you want both. Yeah, some people do. We do have sometimes, so I'll allow it.
Oh, go on then. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go with the kind of dream across the ages team. Maradona, Puskas, Roy Keane, and Paul Gascoigne.
All right, where are you playing in that team?
Well, on the five-a-side, we'd just be rotating. So someone can have a little rest at the back as long as they've been making runs. Do you know what I mean? Just to make sure that that we don't get one snuck in. Honestly, I could have gone on for days about this team. Do you know what I mean? Give me Busquets, give me Messi, give me Ronaldo, all this. But I think Maradona, Gascoigne, Roy Keane, and Puskas. I think it'll be a good party before you get on the pitch.
Yes, they all have a reputation. Some personality. Talk about personalities too.
Yeah,
Puskas is a first timer. Ferenc Puskas, the Hungarian great first timer. How has he kind of imprinted himself on your not just radar, but why he means so much for you? Because obviously, I mean, we named the goal of the year after him, so obviously it's got something to him.
I think there's a lot of people that can be overlooked. But he's not. He's the goal of the year award guy for a reason, and it doesn't matter what stories you read about what experiences people had with him. They're all insanely amusing. What a beast! And I think he'd retired, but was in his 50s, carrying a bit of weight. I can't remember who he was with now. I don't know if it was the German one, Matthias. I don't know if he turned up at a club. Anyway, a club of all-stars. And they're all taking a wager on how many times Puskas would hit the crossbar from the halfway line if you give him 10 shots. And everyone's like, just all the wagers went out, and someone just went, he'll do 10. He'll still do 10. And he just knocks 10 like crossbar challenges out in a row. That he flicks the ball and does it. And you're just like...
He actually managed in the States for San Francisco Golden Gates. He managed in Canada, Vancouver Royals, Alaves, Panathinaikos. So he managed in 6 or 7 countries, but he's kind of mostly known for playing with Honved and then at Real Madrid. Let's see, 3 European Cups, runners up the 54 World Cup. Let's see, 156 goals, 180 games. Yeah. Apparently, he scored 802 goals in 792 games in his career. So seventh all time.
But the greatest ever goal scorer is Cornish, and he's still alive. 2,000 career goals. Well, Rappo would be in there. 2,000 goals. Mark Rapsey, and he's got his own book out as well. He's got a good story. He's well revered.
So it looks like he's an all-time non-league scorer. 2,005 goals.
That's it. Yeah. A winner's a winner, and this is the thing with Cornish football. Up until this season, there's been no professional teams in Cornwall. It's all, non-league. But the pro players don't leave Cornwall, so you have the most intense non-league football in the UK, bar none. It's its own entity. That's why, the spirit is strong. Everyone knows everyone. It's a pretty special place. But yeah, Rappo, I'd definitely have Rappo in there. Prolific goal scorer. That's a great start. I love scoring goals. I'll chuck Gilby in. So Gilby is Darren Gilbert. He's the manager of Kernow FA. Prolific winner, midfielder. There's not one person. In fact, I've met a couple of people this week. One is Ian Gosling, is in the over 50s England team now. He's played in Cornwall a lot, and the guy who owns Celtic Brewery, Stuart Court, have both played against Gilby. And it's like you get away with having a bit of fun with Gilby, but you'd always end up in the stands. One of the most technically astute midfielders you could imagine, but an absolute monster. Really beautiful player, but an animal. Could have played professionally, I'm sure. I think he's still in top 20 for wins as a manager from all managers in all English leagues in all history. He is absolutely prolific. Absolute stalwart winner. And he has been in since day one at Kernow FA. 7 years he's been in there. So I'd have Gilby. Ollie Shanayev, I would actually choose a goalkeeper here. So Ollie Shanayev is the keeper at Kernow FA. He's played championship level. A class act, absolute gentleman. I'd have him in. And I think I will put in there. So I've got Rappo, Gilby. There's another Gilbert, actually. I like Max Gilbert. He's tasty and he's a good boy. Harry Jeffries is an excellent player. There's a lot of good players. But I think I'll go Darren Gilbert, Ollie, Rappo. Ooh, one more. Yeah. I'll go with Max Gilbert. I'll go with Gilbert. They are related, but
so we got two Gilbys. That could get a little confusing. Both of your teams remind me of. I recently learned a Russian saying. I'm not going to say it in Russian because that's beyond my capabilities. But was hanging out with this team of Russian-speaking guys in Miami last week, and they say apparently there's this Russian phrase that we play football because of what happens after football. So
yeah, right.
Pints, food, banter. And so that's what they do it for. So your teams are hitting on both levels, a joy to watch on the pitch and also great personalities off of it.
Can I just ask who would you choose? So you can
not have allowed to ask the question. Not allowed.
Come on.
It's one of those things. Yeah. All right. So Maradona, Ronaldinho, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and probably Messi, but I feel like he's one of those that just, to an extent Maradona is, but like it's the guys that are almost so obvious where it's like, okay, we get it. So who else? So you like to mix it up a little bit. I'd say somebody that everybody hates to love, and honestly they have reasons to hate because there's a lot of questionable things he's done, but you talk about the personality is Luis Suarez. Talk about a footballer, man. Talk about a fighter. Real ones know that he is like, again, things he was doing at Liverpool, things he did with Barcelona. He can do so many things. He's such a well-rounded player. Yeah. He's almost like a Rooney where if you needed, he could play like any position you wanted just because he would figure it out and just battle it. I don't support a lot of things he's done. Do I condone it? No. Is it wrong? Yes. Should he be punished? Yes, and he has. But you just have to appreciate kind of the fire. So I think kind of that might be my team. Not very balanced, but that would probably be my squad.
No, you're good, mate. You're going to have some fun.
Mate, before we let you go here, we got to wrap up with our secret final segment. You got to complete the sentence, complete this phrase, sentence, whatever you want, because football.
Because football, I live.
Brings a smile on my face.
And I've saved this. I cracked it open right to start with. Little wave breaker from my little. This is the only Pilsner brewed in Cornwall from a little partner, Celtic Brewery. Also, multiple 18 golds have won this year. So I'm just going to put a little pitch in there. And I'd like to actually toast. I'd actually like to toast you, Andrew. Well, I'd actually like on this occasion, Andrew. I'd like to toast you, mate. It was awesome meeting you in Ajax. It was a good laugh.
Brilliant.
And here we are.
Brilliant.
Here we are, friends. All right, mate.
A lot of great stories that appreciate it, mate. And all the best to Kernow FA. And
I genuinely love following your journey and your stories that you pull up. It's football in its purest form, street up. So
thank you, mate.
It's a good times, man, and an amazing World Cup next year.
Absolutely. Well, that's a first, because football first. Official cheers. Maybe that should become a tradition. I don't know. I do too many podcasts a day to make that a tradition.
Keep the discipline. Just on Fridays, right? Just on Fridays.
Yes, exactly. Just a Friday after a certain time. So, Jason, what a character, mate. What a fire and passion. Thank you for contributing it to. I don't know if I can thank you, because as you said, it's not exactly a choice. It's just something you need to live, and it's a pleasure to connect with people like yourself who have football as a way of being. But it's using this game for anybody who opens their heart to it is so amazing. So and all the connections that we see through your story.
Mate, I think, and I genuinely mean this, I think there's a legend at every club. You go down to your local club, there's a legend there.
Mm-hmm.
Still living, playing, doing, in history. And I think, connect with your legends, shine a light on them, and enjoy it.
Cheers to that. And everybody listening and watching, thank you guys for being here. Cheers to you all. And keep posted. Like I said, that Kernow kit should be for sale now, should be accessible. So give it a Google search and support what they're doing. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
It's good stuff.
Appreciate it, mate. All right. And everybody listening and watching, see you guys in the next episode. Peace.